Hi, I'm Nick Birmingham. In 2015, I was approached by the Azincourt Museum in France to organise a big shoot to commemorate the 600th anniversary of the Battle of Agincourt. The idea was to put together the largest number of longbowmen seen on that field since 1415 and have them shoot massed volleys of arrows all together. Now that might sound relatively simple, but it was actually very daunting. My first task was to find enough archers, and archers that possessed authentic medieval clothing to satisfy the high standards of the museum, and also archers that were willing and available to travel to France for 3 days that summer. The other problem I faced was how to issue commands to potentially several hundred archers across a front that may have stretched up to 200 yards. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that with my voice. Now, fortunately, we have accounts from the original battle that speak of Sir Thomas Erpingham, commander of the English archers, throwing his baton into the air as a signal to commence shooting. And I decided to use something similar, but with a sword. The idea being that I would give visual commands to captains stationed at 20-yard intervals along the line, and they would convert those into audible commands of mark, draw and loose to the archers in the sections in front of them. And that was something that worked flawlessly. And that is what I like about experimental archaeology, is that if you give someone a similar problem and similar tools, there is a good chance that they will come up with a similar solution to that employed back in 1415. Now, with the valuable help of members of the Free Company of Aquitaine, my living history group, we managed to put together just under 200 archers on the field that day. And the experience of watching just that relatively small number of archers shooting volleys all at once to my commands was something I will never forget. It really was a once in a lifetime experience. Now, I can only imagine what it must have been like in 1415 to see 6,000 or 7,000 archers do that. It must have been incredible. Now, whilst we were there in France that weekend, we learned that there was a film crew making a short piece for the BBC on the big shoot and the reenactment battle that we also staged that weekend. So what follows is the short film that they made.
1,000 reenactors from all over the world have gathered in northern France to mark the 600th anniversary of the Battle of Agincourt.
It's the largest gathering here of longbowmen since 1415, when the English king, Henry V, defeated the French army despite being outnumbered 4-1. Contemporary accounts say that the English arrows blotted out the sun, and these 21st century archers are going to try and recreate the arrow storm that sealed Henry's victory.
The English army was fighting to pursue Henry's claim to the French throne. Henry had been terrorising northern France for months. By now, his army had dwindled to 6,000 men.
The French army was much larger, by some accounts 36,000. The French had blocked the road to the north. Henry had no choice but to fight.
The longbow had already proven its worth in the armies of Edward I in the mid-13th century. First against the Welsh, then the Scots, and then the French. But it was by no means an easy weapon to master. And that's why English archers were taught to shoot the bow from about the age of 7. Loose!
Accurate, deadly, and with a range of over 200 meters, the arrows were specially designed to punch through armor.
The French were armed with handguns and crossbows, powerful and easier to use, but with a much slower rate of fire. They would rely on heavily armoured cavalry, infantry and sheer weight of numbers to smash the English.
The battle began not with the massed ranks of the French attacking the English, but with Henry bringing up his 3 small mustard pots worth of army and loosing off a great shower of arrows. So a charge was started. Henry, however, had been really clever about choosing his battle site. He was between 2 small woods. So the French were unable to surround or come in from the flank. They had to mass up front and charge straight on at the English archers. This was a difficult, slow slog through knee-deep mud. And as they got closer, this slow slog was under a constant hail of arrows. It's said by some accounts that as many as 1,000 per second were raining down. And when the exhausted survivors finally reached the English lines, they were faced with a palisade of sharpened stakes. They were killed in their thousands.
The longbowmen are about to give a demonstration of an arrow storm. It's taken years of planning by hundreds of enthusiasts. The French king, Charles VI, didn't fight at the battle, but he lost the cream of his army and many nobles. He was eventually forced to agree to a marriage between his daughter and the victorious Henry. The King of England was now in line to be the next King of France.
Henry and his longbowmen won the day, but Henry would never sit upon the French throne. He died aged just 35, a few weeks before the French king died. The English claim, however, to the French throne didn't go away for another 4 centuries. And now, 600 years later, the arrow storm is back.